Hey y'all, give y'all some time to get here. We're gonna be having a good conversation today around homeschooling while black as a means to end disrupt the school to prison pipeline. And so I have someone who is going to be joining us in just a second at Raising Readers. And I'm going to let her pop on here. I think, yes, here she is. One second. I think I did it right. Did it pop her on? Yes. Hey, girl.
Hey,
How are you doing?
I'm good. Excited.
Me too. Let me turn this up. Make sure I can hear you at capacity. I probably should have put on my headset. I hate that I always forget something. Can you hear me well?
I can.
Okay, good. All right. So I'm going to start letting people pop on here, but I'm so excited for this conversation. I was just telling them before I let you in that we're going to be, so I intentionally didn't do a ton of trying to know a whole lot about homeschooling prior to this because I wanted to give a realistic type of questions. As I want to ask the questions that I know people are thinking, using myself as a parent who's considering homeschooling. So I'm just so excited. I'm excited. So, okay, I want to take this moment and just, first of all, welcome you. Thank you for popping on and talking to my community. Thank you for welcoming into your beautiful community last week where I was able to train them and give them some information on the easy way to learn their rights. I just loved that whole it was a blessed occasion, girl. When we really started talking in African American vernacular English, we put down everything. It was like, oh yeah, this is YMF, and so that was great.
Yes, my parents, we go there.
Oh, girl, listen, I felt right at home. I felt right at home. So thank you. And then I'm gonna let you introduce yourself, and we'll just kind of let this thing flow. It's 8 o'clock here. I know it's 9 where you are. It's okay if you guys want to have an adult beverage. We're all adults, and we're going to talk about saving our children in innovative and proactive ways.
I love that. And thank you for having me. And for those of you who don't know, like I'm always fangirling with Courtney's work because I think that it is our call, it is our duty, it is our obligation to use our talents and to use whatever grace has been given to us where we have been able to make it out, go get whatever education, go get whatever credentials, and really the point is to come back and serve, right?
Ooh.
Doesn't mean that we have to be righteous and poor.
Yeah.
but we do have to come back and serve and
right.
to make sure that we are doing everything that we're doing. We do it in service of spirit and for the benefit of our people. I mean, that's why we're doing this. And so with you doing the work that you're doing, I'm just like, yes,
right.
this is just like, your work is so important. So I was so blessed by you coming and talking to my parents because it's just necessary. And then when you're like, I'm thinking about homeschooling, I'm like, yes, let's do this.
I feel like it's natural. I feel like when you start really getting into the systems and you're disrupting these systems and you're learning them in and out and learning about how they are operating in plain sight. You know what I mean? They're operating in plain sight, but they're undereducating us and funneling us into this mass incarceration system. And when you really just break it down and just look at the structure, I want to throw up. I don't like it. It's I want something else. Do you know what I mean? And it's got to be a different way. And so what do you like? Tell me, can you tell my community, like, what do you do as far as like what offers do you have? Like, you know, what do you do? How can they work with you? And I know we'll get to that at the very end, but I also want them to have a little intro into what you do so they can understand throughout.
Yeah. So off top, I have been my son is 15. I have been homeschooling him since kindergarten. We were there for 6 months and we were like, this is not going to work.
Yeah.
Right. Already from he went into school reading at a second grade level, doing math at a second grade level. Within 6 months, he was not even picking up a pencil. He just felt so demoralized in being that scenario. And I would have note after note and complaint after complaint about things that he was doing. And then I would go to class and be like, I don't think that this is anything that he needs to be reprimanded for, right? And I remember one teacher where she was a white teacher and she said to me, aren't you afraid? She asked me something. I said, well, I need to speak to him, right, before I really assess the situation. And we need to like bring him into the conversation. And she was like, oh, you're doing that conscious parenting thing. And I was just like, yeah, I respect my child. And I would like for him to be in the conversation. And she said, like, aren't you afraid that he will turn into a criminal? Ooh. And I was like, it has not crossed my mind. No, because he's 5 and he's the youngest person in the class. Why would I think that?
Are you afraid he's going to turn into a criminal?
Because you're doing conscious parenting.
And what is conscious parenting?
Well, really, I mean, it's conscious discipline, or rather. But basically, you know, is looking at your child with respect. Is not authoritative, even though you have healthy boundaries, but it's not authoritative parenting. And you also you're setting up natural consequences rather than punishment. Right. And so so that the child can understand, okay, this is a boundary and these are the things that we can do. This is the things that we shouldn't. It's a lot of that, right? And also seeing your child in the highest regard. Yeah. And not making an assumption, a negative assumption about their intent without understanding what their intent is. She's like, if we do that, like, aren't you afraid? And it was like, no, I have not criminalized my child, my 5-year-old. No, I have not.
Right. But that's crazy because she already had. And it's like the people in the comments are like, the fuck? They're like, wow. Like, you know, where do they do that? Like in the schools, it's a 5-year-old.
But the thing about it is, as much as we say, oh, who does that? We do it, right? As much as we can say that. So that was the last day that my son was in that building. But we do it all the time. When we over punish, when we hit, there's so many things that we do, and we're saying, I have to make sure that I do this or he will not. Yeah. Right? So when we ourselves as a community parent out of fear, and we start projecting, we don't want the streets to get them. We don't want this. We don't start doing that with our teens. We really do start doing that with our children, particularly our boys. We do start doing that with our children at 5. Yeah. We do it all of the time. Wow. Right. And so we can say that, of course, that she has no business doing that, right? And so that's why I had to remove him from that environment. But we also have to understand that we as a community do it ourselves. Right. And so a part of what, particularly when we have our children in those environments, because when we have children in those environments, we start to operate as agents of those environments. So when you're a parent and you have your children in school, you stop parenting and you become an agent of a school. Okay. So because your job all of a sudden is make sure they get to school, make sure they get to school on time, make sure they do their work, make sure the teacher doesn't call you, so you almost relinquish your parenting role and become a school agent, a state agent. So you start behaving, right? All of a sudden, even things that you don't even believe in. Right. You start correcting your child and saying, well, just, you know what I mean? We just don't want this to be a problem. I don't even believe in it, but I need to now police you because we don't want this to be a problem. We don't want this teacher to call us.
Wow.
We don't want, I don't believe in shaming, but we don't want your name on the board. And so we start
our parents, that are they making it about, parents are making it about them. We're making it about us. We're getting concerned with what someone thinks about how what they'll think about our parenting skills if our children do something, right?
Absolutely. Because but part of that is, Courtney, because we haven't healed. Like, we're projecting what was done to us, so we haven't healed. We're parents, and we're adults and traumatized, but we're traumatized children in parent or adult bodies, right. And so now we're inside of schools, interacting with school systems, and we're triggered, and we have childlike regressions, right. And so yeah, I just opted out immediately, and then I had to figure it out, right? And so my son now would have been in 10th grade, so he is, that's 11 years of homeschooling. So what happens after this is that within a couple of years, I was still concerned about the kids that we left behind.
And so is that how you got to, and I want to say because I don't want to, I really want to make sure people understand what At Raising Readers is. And I know you all are helping parents center home as the epicenter of learning, healing, and belonging. So you told me a little bit of your why behind that with your son, but tell us, is there any more why to why you created this? Is there additional, did you have issues?
So I just felt, prior to this, what I was doing was just doing literacy instruction, right? Because I believe in equipping parents with the ability to teach their children to read. I think that people need to do that regardless of what regardless of anything, because reading is one of the first academic things that children need to know. And so if I feel like I want to center my home as the epicenter of learning, regardless of whether or not I homeschool them, right? I want my child when he's 16 to come to me when he wants to know about something, right? I can't expect my child to be 16 or 13 and see me as somebody to come to if I've never taught him anything. Right? If I've never centered myself and my stories and my authority and my resourcefulness, if I have never really centered myself in his learning, I can't turn around and ask my teenager to then center me as somebody.
Come on.
Right?
Can I just say a piece of that, why I feel like now I'm remembering why we connected just so well immediately? Because as soon as you're saying that, I'm like, yes, the same with criminal justice literacy, right? How can we expect our children to know what to do in these encounters when we're not the ones teaching them? Okay, I'm sorry. Keep going.
So I'm always telling parents, like, whether or not you're going to homeschool, you want to teach your child to read. You want to create a template that says the thing, and you also, like, literacy is a tool for liberation, right? Personal liberation, collective liberation. And so that I don't want you to think about the state being the source of your liberation.
Wow.
Right?
I saw something that you posted today, and it was about Governor DeSantis. Can you talk a little bit about that?
So I think it was the lieutenant governor, and he proposed a piece of legislature that would give teachers an incentive to carry a weapon.
Oh my God.
So this is like a $10,000 incentive for them to actually carry a weapon. And another part of the proposal was to have more armed force presence. And
so now we're going to have teachers in school with guns who are already funneling the children 3 times, the minority, the Black and brown children, 3 times more into mass incarceration, right?
Who already see them as criminals.
They already see them as criminals. Now we're going to say, hey, here's the gun. Go in there, keep teaching.
Right. That doesn't even, right. So,
That's
but
scary.
it
That
is
is
extremely
scary.
scary. And so for some people, homeschooling is kind of like, so one thing at a time. So I teach parents to teach their children to read and to center themselves in their homes, as the centers of, again, learning, collection, learning, healing, and belonging. And that needs to happen. That's the template. That is the prototype that needs to happen, right? When I tell somebody, if you were to not be here today,
You
or if
te-
your children,
right. I'm sorry. You said you teach parents to teach their kids to
yes, their
read.
children, yes,
Wow.
to read, to think critically, to
Oh,
center. This is what the work that we have to do. Because if we don't do it, if we don't know how to center our children in it, right? If we don't center our children, if we don't center our children's humanity,
right.
then they cannot see us as a resource. They cannot see
Okay,
us.
I say that one more time.
If we do not center ourselves in their learning, as their guide, as their support, they cannot see us as their resource. They
Yes.
just cannot see it, right? We have to center our values. We have to center criticality. We have to center humanity. We have to be in relationship. And if we do not do that from the very beginning, then we are not on assignment, right? And so that happens. That's the work that I do with parents, regardless of whether or not, like, I don't care where your children go to school. I would prefer for them not to be in school, but I don't care whether
In the formal school, you
in
rather
the
them be.
formal school, right?
Yes.
But whether or not your children are spending 6 hours of their day or 8 hours of their day inside a school building, home still is the epicenter.
Woo!
If I don't center that, then we will raise children that will uphold colonialism and
Right.
uphold white supremacy,
Right.
and uphold anti-blackness, because we had them in a system, and we centered that system, and we know that system is all those things.
Wow. Wow. So an act of resistance, a way to fight back, to disrupt that is to center, right? Just for your kids, you're the epicenter.
Yeah.
You create the learning environment. You create the curriculum. Even if you can't, if you don't want to take your kids out of public school or whatnot, you have to. I love that.
Yeah.
I love that.
So that is what I do, right? Because I tell, these children are our assignment, and we have to stay on assignment. And the assignment is to guide, to respect, to uphold, to really preserve the personhood,
right,
of this child, right? And so that's the ideal, and that's the assignment. That's what I teach parents to do, right?
So let me ask you a quick question. Can I?
Yeah, sure. All the questions.
So a question that I know a lot of people had was, because you're giving us an option. You just gave us one option, which was, okay, you're still, have your child in traditional school. You still, I help you center the parenting, right? Because there are gaps that are being missed. There are things not being taught. There are all types, again, making your child into the perfect little prisoner, right? The perfect little worker body.
Yeah.
And so what are some other options? I know, exploring, just like, are there people, I know you have a cohort. Are there people, like, what are other homeschool options? Like, we don't know these types of things, how people get together. I know they take their kids out sometimes. What's out there?
I think a lot of the time people are like, well, and here's what I'll say. You spend enough time with me center in school, you're going to a lot of
parenting,
centering the homeschool, like the home,
right?
And giving enough parents tools, and all of a sudden, a lot of those parents transition into homeschooling. Because they're like, one of the reasons I didn't think I could homeschool is because I didn't think I was capable, and I didn't think that I was sending them to school with fear, because I was like, if I don't, who's going to teach them to read? And now I've taught you that you will teach them to read better.
Ooh, you're empowering parents. You're showing them you can do it. You know, when you think about this in a business sense, right? So, you know, we're in Rachel's We Should All Be Millionaires group. It's an entrepreneur group. Amazing, amazing women. That's where we met. So, in something of that nature, we're learning, right? We're learning how to do that.
Yeah.
We're learning.
So you have to, now you see yourself, right? You're like,
right?
wait a minute, I can do this. Right?
Yeah, like we're learning. We got to start selling an offer so we can learn how to do it, and we can then prove to ourselves, oh, I can do this. And it's like with parents, you're really tapping on something, because you, like you said, we tend to make it about us, our children's, you know, successes, their failures, every single thing. And so a part of us, it may be imposter syndrome. It's inside of us telling us, you know, good and well, you can't teach that child A, B, C, D, F, G. You didn't even do that good in that class, you know, something like that, right?
Yeah, because like I said, I tell people all the time, that's why it's the epicenter of healing as well, because we're traumatized children just in adult bodies. Right? And so the other thing is
traumatized children in adult bodies.
That's it. So that's the other thing. And then if you never saw your parent as your teacher, then it's really hard to see yourself as your children's teacher. And I think that's tragic, because that's not our history, right?
That's huge.
Yeah.
That's
schools have only been around for 100 to 120 years, and we have been around for a lot longer than that. So clearly, people have been learning and people have done great things without this model. And but because of this model, our ideas about who gets to teach and who is certified to teach, who is qualified, and here's the thing, Courtney, that I want everyone to understand.
Ooh, yes.
For the last 40 years, and you can look it up, you can name it, you can, whatever you want to do, right? For the last 40 years, schools have not been teaching children to read. And so, like, the reading proficiency in this country is about 30%. For Black and brown children. When I say children, I mean adults as well, because this is 40 years. So some of those children clearly are adults now. And so we're always saying, you know what? Parents need to, it was the parents. And we have been fed that programming that always made us internalize that it was us.
Yes.
And so we're like, another reason why we sent you to school was that we don't want to be those Black people that didn't teach their kids to read. We don't want to be those people, but really, it was never us.
Yes.
It was those schools that did not do the thing. Not only did they not do the thing, their teachers now, teacher colleges and schools are saying the teachers didn't even know how to teach. And yet we centered them. Right? We gave them this authority. Not even based on the output. Not even so. For 40 years, you've only done something well 10 to 20% of the time. You do not have authority over my child. Right? You don't have the authority over my child, but yet we have given it to them.
Yeah. No, you're telling the truth. You're telling the truth. And so what does a parent do? You know what I mean? What is the first step? Like, what does a parent do? Because, you know, that imposter syndrome is real. And then, oh, I'm sorry, let's not forget, I'm too busy, right? And I'm going to get into a next question later on that I'll ask you later on. It's like, give me a sample schedule that you all have done in homeschooling. But what's the first step that a parent can do when they don't know, you know, anything here, like at this level?
So I think the first thing is to start following or start asking, like, who do I know? And that is a homeschooling parent. Just start asking, right? So first of all, you can follow me.
Yep. At Raising Readers.
I also have, because I bring so many people into this fold, I have a very low cost offer too. It's like, I think it's like $30 for, it's for like, and it has like, it's an intro, newbies type of thing, but it really, I think it's 6 hours of instruction. Like, how do you actually fill out a paperwork? How do you create? It's all of that, because I stopped doing one-on-one consultation because I'm expensive, right? So that is just so that is there.
And there's nothing wrong with that. Maybe it's value. There's value.
So
oh, somebody on here said teaching my child how to read was no, it's Ashley with Adam. She said teaching my child how to read was one of the hardest part of homeschooling for me. I love that you're teaching parents that. That's my amazing operations manager. She has a business called Technically Better Operations. Y'all go follow her. She's amazing.
We do. It is, if you don't know, if you've never been taught how to teach it, because you're like, where do I start? And parents will start saying, like, you know, just sound it out, or just, and you realize you can't just sound everything out. And what are all the rules and how does it work? And so we actually, it's really great. We come in community every Sunday, and it's just like we are all just learning together in community. We're like, this is what you do. First this sound, then this next sound, this, like, one at a time until we get it done. And so that is what I do every single day.
What do you say for the people who say they don't have time for that? That's too much time.
Too much time to homeschool, too much time to teach your child to read?
Both.
Well, the thing about it is, you have to, you're on assignment.
Yep.
So you either want your child to succeed, or you don't.
Or you don't.
Or you don't. So I don't really, ultimately, the schools, if you keep them in school, you can look up, I tell people all the time, you go ahead and look up your state. You go ahead and read their reading report and say, what is the proficiency in my state?
Oh my God.
It'll be about 30%. And if you're Black and you're brown, you can look yours up right now. And if you're Black and you're brown and you want to look at the proficiency literacy rates in public school in insert state, if you look at it by race, it will not be higher than 15%.
Wow.
So you're either want to take the chances and the odds.
Currently, only 34.7% of Tennessee's third graders are reading proficiently.
And look it up by race.
Wow.
So if you look it up by race, so you either, if those are the odds that you want for your children, then you do nothing. And then if you don't want those odds for your children, then you do something else. So
wow,
that's what it comes down to.
Oh yeah, I found it. It's like right here, you can go to the nation's report card. Right. And then you can pull it up by whatever. So I typed in what you said, and then I hit the nation's report card.
Right.
And in 2022, the average score in Tennessee, 214, was lower than those in 12 states or jurisdictions. And let's see, the race or ethnicity. So the percentage of students, 60% white students, their average score 222% at or above, 68. I don't know. That's basic proficient. So 37%. Yeah. So that was the 37% of the 60% of white students. Of the Black students, it was 20%, and only 13% were proficient.
Right. So if you want proficiency, you have a 13% chance.
Wow.
That's what you're gonna get. So either you have time to do it, or if you don't, then that's what you're gonna get.
Either if you care about your children, you'll have time to do it, because I mean, if we're the millennials, right? We're coming up with Gen Z and, having children, and we're talking about breaking generational curses. We're talking about healing from generational trauma. We're talking about building generational wealth. How can we do these things when we're not even teaching our children how to read? Like, how can we really just be building like on that level?
I get so triggered when people are like, oh, we need to teach kids how to do businesses, and we need to teach kids how to financial literacy. I'm like, okay, at what proficiency level can you do it? Because you're gonna need some kind of proficiency
to read first.
You need proficiency to find out financial statements. And let me tell you, I have an MBA. So I have an MBA from WashU Top 25 program. You cannot be people will lose a lot of money if you don't know how to read a financial statement. There's numbers that are written. And so if you're just buying everything because such and such person told you such and such thing, we don't have money to lose.
Right.
Right. We do not have it to lose. And so we have to be able to have our children have proficiency so that we can navigate these systems. That's just what it is. So we know 13% is not going to do it.
No, it's not. And you said, like, I remember when I talked to you initially, you said that if you enrich a child's life in the first 5 years and you follow them for 4 years after, they have more than 80% of the time they beat the odds, right?
Yeah, they beat the odds. I mean, and so like we have the time where we don't, right? And so if we're on assignment, then that's what we do.
Right.
And it doesn't take that long. That's the other thing, is that 15, 20 minutes a day, if you know what you're doing, right? That's really what it takes. And so you make an investment to spend an hour a week to really learn these systems and how to do it, right? And we have like like 10, 12-week course. You learn, and now you're going to be spending 20 minutes
Right.
a day with your child to create this foundation. You either have the time or you don't.
I love that you said that about, like, they can take a course, so that means they can do that on their own time, right?
Right. So the way that I teach them is I give parents the plan, and then we come together once a week and we go over. Because here's the reality. I used to do a self-directed course, and you can't say one thing if you don't say the other.
Right.
If you say that you have 20% of the population that's proficient,
right,
and 80 that are not,
right,
for our communities, then I also have to understand that it's some of those parents that cannot read and fully comprehend and
right,
fully understand how to just walk through this manual and this self-directed course and then turn around and teach their children.
Yeah, no, and that is real. That is real. And that's actually remembering, like you said earlier, to the 40 years, right? People not getting that kind of learning. And so let me ask you this, because I know a lot of people want to know it. Can you give us like a sample? Because a lot of us are so used to, we've been institutionalized. We had to go to school like that, and then we went and started working jobs 9 to 5. We started doing this mechanical thing that we've been taught is life, and that's what we have to do. It's what we actually teach our children. And so can you break down what people are thinking and wanting to know concerning the schedule of homeschool? Like, does it have to be that same 8 to 4 schedule like at school?
So what we want to do is, once you have divested yourself from these systems, you don't want to recreate that system.
Once you have divested yourself from the system, you do not want to recreate that system. That's a word.
No, you do not. So, like, let me give you an example. Because some people just completely unschool. I don't just completely unschool them. I actually do things with my children for their explicit instruction. But to give you an example, with parents that I work with. So I'll say, if you're sitting down with your children for 20 minutes to explicitly do a lesson, a reading lesson, for example, you explicitly do it, and then during the day they're listening to podcasts. So there's children podcasts that are history podcasts. There's children podcasts that are science podcasts. There's children's story, like all kinds of children podcasts. So then during the day, they're like listening to their podcast and they're playing, right? They're playing. They're doing whatever it is that we do. One thing that we do in my house is that every day, my daughter and I, my son, we just sit around the couch and we will construct sentences based on our day, right? So my daughter is 6 and she might say, her sentences are so bomb. It'll be like, she was listening to a podcast and it might be, if you have a chameleon for a pet, you should make sure that you keep the light on because they're a cold-blooded animal. Ooh. Right? So this is a 6-year-old constructing that sentence, because how I do sentences with her is I teach her sentence structure just because our conversation. So once a day, she will construct 3 of those sentences. There are children that are in 3rd grade that can't construct those sentences in school. Like, and did anybody sit in a desk and do it? No, we just orally, I had her summarize the things that she was listening to and now give me a sentence. Now
Right.
the next day for tomorrow, so I have her record that.
Right.
Now the next day for tomorrow, her literacy lesson is she gets to sit, listen to herself in that sentence. So the day before, so today is Wednesday. She told me this. Now that creates connection because
Right.
I know what she listened to, right?
Right.
I'm knowing that I sent to her. She tells me she's recording it. Tomorrow she will press play on on my voice memo, and she will write that.
Wow.
So now she's
Okay.
practicing a science fact. She summarized information, and she's practicing her phonics, and then we're going to practice her grammar in that context.
Right.
She can write, she can smoke, these kids out here, right? And that took nothing, right? That's the 20 minutes that it took her to write that sentence, or, I did 3. Then during the day, she learns, or she might go on site with her dad. And her sentence might be like, after going on site, we went and dropped off the soil samples.
Wow.
Right? And so that's her day.
Wow.
Tomorrow she will write that.
Wow. I love that. So she writes about what she's actually doing, right? The things, experiences she's having. And so, like, are there any, and I know you're in New York, right?
No, I'm in Atlanta.
You're in Atlanta. Yeah. Oh, come on. I think you're in New York.
It's
Well, you picked.
I have a lot of cohorts that are mostly New York based.
That's what it was. I remember you telling me about something about the city of New York when we talked. Yeah. So, you're in Atlanta, and speaking of, I had a question because there's somebody down there that's doing something really dope that I definitely want to explore. But you are there any strict rules? Like, are there rules like, hey, your child needs to be learning for 6 hours?
Yeah, so that's the thing. So the first step is to find out. So step 1, so before I say that, so what I do too with my daughter, so we do that 20-minute period. What we're doing, just that direct instruction where she's at this point, she's just like listening and dictating, self-dictating, right? And then I go in there and I just help. That's 20 minutes. During the day, we're living. We also do 20 minutes of direct work with blocks. And then a few times a day, there's AI tutors that she works with,
right,
for math. So
wow,
she's doing that. My son, he's in high school, so his homeschooling looks different than my 6-year-old, my first grader, right? So it also looks different. Right. So it's really important for us to know that grades, like what grade level matters. But the first thing that you need to know is like, what are the criteria in your state? Right.
Number one, what are the criteria in your state? Can we just Google that, homeschool criteria in state?
Yep.
Okay.
That's it. And usually it's just like intent. You just have to say, this is my intent. This is my intent, and I understand that this is the criteria. For a lot of parents are like, that's it. You're like, that's it. That's what you have to do, right? Some states, very few, will have you test. Like they might have you test 3 times in the 12 years, or every 3 years you participate in state testing. But and you can opt out in some states, and some states you can't. Here's what you need to also know. Your children have to do significantly worse than the kids in your county. So they can't hold you to something that they can't hold themselves, right? Right. So you also have to see, like, do I think I could do a better job?
I mean, we just looked at the proficiency rates. I mean,
correct.
So
correct.
So here, let me tell you this. What here in Tennessee, I pulled it up. So they have Tennessee home, like in here in Tennessee. I just pulled it up real quick. I Google homeschool Tennessee, and it pops up, and then it says gives me depending on the type of program. One of them's independent homeschool, right? So registering as this independent homeschool means the student's parent or legal guardian is the teacher of record and is responsible for ensuring all educational requirements are met under the law. To independently homeschool in Tennessee, parents or legal guardians must possess a high school diploma or a high school equivalency credential approved by the State Board of Education and must submit, like you said, an intent to homeschool form to the school district where the family resides. And so it's not a lot. It just says independent
like in
homeschool students.
Georgia, it's just a form. You just do it once a year and you say, this is my intent.
Yeah,
That's it.
that's what it has here. And then it says, looks like independent homeschool students must take the TCAP assessment in grades 5, 7, and 9. So do you ever see people homeschool and like instead of them teaching, they maybe hire a teacher? I saw something like that in Georgia where I saw they retired a teacher and a couple of families take their children there.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's different things. Like to me, I feel like I'm still like, okay, let's center ourselves. But with everything, outsource the thing that you don't want to do. And also like welcome self-directed learning. And so for my son, as your children, once you give them that foundation, there's self-directed learning. So you're like, this is when you can look at these videos.
Yep.
You can do the exercises. If you don't want to look at these videos, one of the things, for example, like my son, he has an interest in permaculture and in soil science and those things, like climate justice and all of those things.
Right.
Well, I can't keep up with it. So he found somebody that has an urban garden. And every Thursday he goes to that urban garden. And
I love that.
And then he spends 6 hours there learning. And
I love that.
Donating his time because that's his interest. And so there he is learning his science. There he is pursuing his passion.
I love it.
There he is learning more, like literally more science. He was creating something, and my partner, who's a geotechnical engineer, was like, this is like college level. He was creating these basins. When I told him, he was like, this is geotechnical engineering. My son found the person on Instagram and he just goes there every Thursday. There's 15-year-olds are not doing that.
I love that.
Kind of school.
No, they're not. And then they're not being taught to follow their passions or to even like the fact that he found a garden. So he's learning skills, right? How to grow, sustain his own food. And that's so important now, right? Knowing all of this genetically modified shit coming. And so it's like, I just love that you have the freedom to do that because, you know, when you're in traditional school, a lot of times these kids come home tired.
You're tired. I don't even know how people do it. I don't know. Listen, my kids just this year decided they wanted to do soccer and swimming. And so every Tuesday and Thursday, we're doing the thing after school. And I'm like, how do people do this in school? Like, how?
It's
and
crazy.
Ask me about, like, money. And I'm like, y'all spending, let me tell you, my parents, you spend money. If you think taking your kids to school does not cost,
oh my
God. First of all, if you're going to private school, you're going to private school. But even if you're going to public school, there's before care, after care. There's all kinds of clothes that you are always buying because you have your outdoor regular clothes, then you have your clothes for school. You're forever like bringing all the things. You have, if there's a birthday, you got to bring cupcakes for the time. Like there are all of these other expenses that come with public schooling.
You're telling the truth. Yeah.
And then on top of that, if we're going to be 100, you have to do all the enrichment classes and the tutoring anyway and pay for those.
Yep. And like you're preaching because like I pay for my mom to be a nanny to actually help the kids with their homework, to focus and ensure, you know, that they're growing, doing what they need to be doing because it's a lot, you know, it is a lot. And then to also, and that is, I think, what really helped open my mind to the other options, because I was like, well, you know, I want to make sure my children are doing well because I don't want my children getting like, I don't want them just to be falling through the cracks and y'all passing them just to be passing them, or you know what it is, you know how they barely teach or whatever. And I'm like, I don't really want that to happen. And so I got my mom. I was like, hey, can you help with the make sure, you know, they're making every milestone. And so she's like, she does that kind of nanny for me. And that has helped tremendously. Kids grown well, everything, because she takes that time with them to just focus after and make sure they know it. And it's not a lot of time. It's not like, it doesn't take that much. And so when I saw that,
You're like, you're
I was
already
like,
doing it and you're paying for it. But then
yes,
you're doing it and you're paying
yes,
for it. And then you have,
yes,
but here's what you also have. You have to now plan your
right.
schedule around the school, plan your schedule around the school schedule.
Yep.
In a couple of years, you need to get a therapist because the child has anxiety, testing anxiety. Like so many
Come on
people
now.
have. Listen, there are other costs.
You
It
preaching.
does not
There are
prove,
other costs.
there are other costs. Like we are not thinking that our children are inside of oppressive systems at no cost.
Wow.
It comes at a cost. So there's clothing costs, there's socializing costs, there's emotional costs, there's spiritual costs, there's an undoing, there's a cost of separation between you and them. There are all of these costs, real, like tangible, financial, spiritual. There's all currencies of cost involved.
You're so right. And let me ask you a question, because you know, I'm always preaching to parents. You know, I now do the business coaching with minority women looking to build their business.
Listen to this. And there's also a future earnings cost.
Right.
Because inside of these systems,
that's right where I'm going to go.
Scarcity mindset.
That's where I'm about to go.
Inside of these systems, so the cost, you continue to
yes.
have those costs
yes.
throughout a lifetime.
Yeah.
Because you're constantly
yes.
being told what you're not. Imposter
yes.
syndrome. You're like all of these things. And
you are
have
preaching.
To undo them as an adult.
Okay, so like you're preaching. And that's exactly where I was going with it when I said that I'm a business coach. And so now that I'm doing that and helping minority women build their businesses, I look at it now differently. I'm buying back my freedom, right? I want the ability to take my children around the world, to go travel and let them have the experiences. You ever, I follow the Mom Trotter. Huge is I love the Mom Trotter because, you know, I don't want to do the RV lifestyle, but I want that freedom to be able to go travel for months and months on end and make sure my children are not missing anything. They're able to be homeschooled while you're on the road. But they're also able to have, like your son is doing when he goes to the urban garden. They are having these real cultural experiences that opens their mind in ways that can't be shut. Can you speak to that? Do you have parents in your community who do things like that?
Absolutely. So once you've divested yourself to it, you're like, what can we do? And also, it's kind of like how you just saw your mom as a resource. Sometimes parents are like, well, I don't have the time, or I have a regular job, or I have this, or I don't have the time, I don't have this, or I have that. And it's like, actually, there are more jobs or more opportunities that you can pursue when all of your schedule is not based on a school schedule. The school schedule is grossly inconvenient, and we think that it's in there to service us. It is not, right? It is not, because nobody works from 8 to 3.
Right.
And so so there's that. Second of all, I'm like, for example, my brother is somebody who, if I was in school, I would not see him as a resource, but he would have never thought that he would have something to contribute to my children's education. I was just like, you know what? Why am I going to pay a house manager and why are you going to go work a job when really you can be here and you can be uncle and house manager, and now my son can see how, like, we can break the patriarchy, right? So now he's like, for multiple reasons, he is the perfect person. So we can start seeing people in our family, in our communities, as our resources. You're like, oh, I don't know who's going to teach them science. One of the things that I tell my clients, I'm like, you sit down and you make a list of the people that you know. What do they do? What are their talents? What are their stories? What languages do they speak? What jobs do they have? What hobbies do they have? Where do they go to school, we have historians, we have
Ooh.
scientists, we have linguists, we
Ooh.
have, like, what don't you have?
Let me say something real quick, girl. Oh my God, that's the gem that you just dropped. Go make a list of the people you know, right? And like I can shout out at Kriya Shannon. She just came out with a book. It's like it teaches STEM, right? And to young minority women, girls, and I mean it's the whole shebang. You know, then you have me with the criminal justice literacy. You have you. I mean, it's
Let me tell you,
crazy.
one of the things I teach, because teaching children to read with criticality and really
That's crazy.
comprehension and criticality, it's not just phonics, right? So one of the things that I teach parents is how to build their children's background knowledge,
Right?
how to build their knowledge, right? And really be able to make connections. And one of the tools that I give parents is a worksheet that we work through. So these are all tools that parents that come to work with it, and we do it in cohort. Like, we're
Right.
like, write the 25 people, and then we
I
have
love
questions.
that.
What are the questions that you're going to ask them? Where they went to school, where they grew up, how did their families get here, when did they migrate from the south to the north? Like, and now
You give your parents that in your cohort?
Yes.
Wow.
So now the parents go from thinking that they can't to knowing not only can I like, there is no, you were on assignment.
You're only
You were
limited by yourself. You're only limited by yourself. So when you're teaching them to leverage their network, you're saying, excuse me, wait a minute. Go through who you know. And I'm just thinking in my brain right now about people that I would like my child to, I'd like to let them at least have a day or a couple of hours learning what this person does. And why are we not already doing that?
And we're not doing it because systems of oppression take all of our time. So this is what we're not doing.
There you go.
Because a school
Systems
system will
of
just
oppression
take all of your
take
time.
our time.
You can't move.
Yeah.
They got your foot in your neck and you can't do it, right? So it's like, when we divest ourselves from those systems, we realize we had the juice all along.
Oh, we had the juice all along. When I tell you the takeaway that I got from this last one was systems of oppression take our time, because baby, they suck, bleed dry like a vampire.
So that
right?
You can feel helpless. You're like, I don't have time to do anything. I don't even have time to connect with my
Your
child.
children, you don't. I gotta cook dinner. I gotta do this.
I can't. We can't eat. We can't do. We can't. I don't know my child. Listen, I will tell you this.
That's hard.
I was given 2 children to assignment. I say 3 because I also raised another child for 6 years. So 3 children, 3 assignments. These children are going to know me. And I am going to know them, because that's my assignment. Yes. And if anything that is taking me away from my assignment, and no system, no man, no parent, no nobody, right?
Yeah.
The unit is this, right? And so even when I love, one day my partner, when we're together, he was like, we have to have a united front, in front of the kids. I said, ain't no united front, baby. It's one front, one family, one unit. Woo! That's it. That's it. This carceral authoritarian thing that you have, that is white supremacy and colonialism. Right? I said, it's not in the best interest of the children. It is not in the best interest of us. We are
not in the best interest of the children, and not in the best interest of us.
And we're gonna figure it out. But you don't have time to really sit in circle and sit in community and connection and in healing and in learning when the systems are taking up all of your time. But once you divert yourself from that, it's like,
life is so much better. You're so right. And I think that saves the question, that last thing that people are usually thinking, like, they're thinking in the mindset of that grind, that hustle, that grind that we've been taught to do, that, I need time. My children got to get up out of the house because they get on my nerves with the woo. Well, the only reason is because, again, the system of oppression is taking all of your time. You're giving all of your time. Then your child is giving all of their time, and then you guys don't have the best of each other. You got the tired version.
And the thing about it is, it's so incredible because once you teach your children how to be self-directed, like your children do not want to be all up in your face. They're independent people, right? It's also that we think about, we think we have a very myopic and limited idea and concept of what children are and who they are. We don't see them in the fullness of their personhood. That is also colonialism, and we have been taught that. Children don't need to be supervised 100% of the time. They don't need to be only taught by us, right? They need to be in relationship and in connection and in belonging. Right?
Yes.
But I tell my children all the time, these are my mom hours. This is when I'm available.
Boundaries.
All kinds of boundaries.
Boundaries. People don't think they can have boundaries with their children or in their families. Like, baby, you just because you're homeschooling your children don't mean they're entitled to every moment of your life.
Yeah.
No.
They don't want to. They don't want it.
Right.
So somebody asked, like, how do you nurture children's social lives and skills while homeschooling? And I want to say this. One of the things that it's hard to build community, right? If you think about how it's hard to build community as an adult, I would say all of us have a hard time. It's hard to find your people, right? But I think it's a lot harder to find your people to people who went through traditional schooling, because you were always given your social group. It was always given to you. You come in, you got 20 new friends, and then from those you end up clicking with 4, and then next year you do it again, and then next year you do it again, and then next year you're doing it again, and then you get to the real world and you're like, I don't know how to do this on my own.
Wow.
That's why it's so hard.
Wow.
What I think is so beautiful is that even though it's hard and you have to be intentional about it, your children are learning that while they are children.
Ooh. That's a word. Now, I never thought of it that way. I never thought of it that way. Because that's one thing that a lot of people are going to ask. People are going to say, oh my God, well, doesn't, them being in a homeschool, that's going to make them like, weird, or they're going to not be able to socialize or whatever. And it's like, hold on. First of all, let's go back to centering parenting, honey. Okay? You can get into these communities and these groups.
Yes. Self-selected,
yes.
Right? So then I don't have to worry about 20 kids who I don't know. Because the only thing that we have in common is that we were assigned the same school.
Yes. But
that's it.
You get to be intentional about the relationships, and then you get to set up you get to go join the communities and go out and do these different things. On top of that, I love it.
They're socializing with children. They're socializing during the day. They're socializing with those intentional relationships with adults, with the world, and then after school, they're socializing with kids who went to schools, right? So Like my daughter goes to soccer. Most of those kids went to school. After school, they go to soccer. She's socializing with us.
That's the same thing with my daughter and her best friend. Like, they go to school. They're not in the same class. They were mad about it this year. And so what they do now, she comes home, she does her work, and when she's done, and she has like an hour or so, they're on the phone. They're catching up. They're having a good time talking.
So it's very similar.
Yeah.
And then during the day, they're socializing with the world.
Yes.
They're socializing with the world, in the world, with adults, without an authority figure over them, policing these are skills that we need to have.
Right.
If we're really going to learn to move through life as free people.
Right.
Right? As empowered people, to not have those experiences for the first 18 years of your life is to your detriment. Right.
So and then to follow up on what the IT bombshell was saying about how to nurture your children, socialize, like I'm not homeschooling yet, but my thought process already is to find a squad of moms that are doing this centering, the parenting, right? And then in this location that I am in, and joining the groups, the Facebook groups, and then actually not being scared to reach out, right? Putting it out there saying, hey, y'all, you know what I mean? Y'all want to go to the Adventure Science Center? That's here in Nashville. It's like a location. Or, hey, y'all, do y'all want to go to a farm? the urban garden.
Exactly. They're already there. And here's the thing, it's like invisible people. Like, you don't know. It's like if you ever get a car and it's like you think you're like the only person with that car, and then you get it and then you're like, oh, the car's everywhere. That's
Everybody has
everybody has it. It's a little bit like that.
Okay.
And again, we have kissed a lot of frogs. We have kissed a lot of frogs to get to our people as homeschoolers. But with every single interaction, we've been like, I have been able to say, we're going to try it out. We might meet some cool people. We might not. But that is something that we have done and done and done. And now my children know to do it.
Okay.
So that when they're out in the world, they can go anywhere. And they will know. Like, you set up the disappointment, you set up
they'll
the
be
pain. You're like
empowered. They don't feel like they don't have to stay in one location. They don't have to just do just this little box that they've grown up knowing.
Yeah.
Because you've exposed them to so much more.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that. Okay, so let me ask you this, Nikolai, because girl, we are 1 minute over 9 o'clock. I feel like I have just had the best conversation with you. I've enjoyed this so much. If anybody else wants to get in some last minute questions, y'all better go ahead and type. But Nikolai, I want you to end us out on something that you want to let them know, and then make sure you tell them where they can go follow you. I know your info's already up here because Raising Greeters, but let them know how they can get into your community.
Yeah, I would say follow me. Again, if anybody, like, let's take this seriously in terms of like really teaching our children to read, and to teach them to read through criticality and connection and centering our children. It can be done. Everyone should be doing it. And so my cohorts, my labs are there for parents to come spend 6 weeks with me, spend 6 weeks in community with other parents, and really like learn to do it. And really, so that's one, it's there for you. That resource is there for you. And I feel like I've been doing this for years, and people, let me tell you something real quick.
Come on.
I was doing a workshop in Memphis, and this parent just came in. She had not bought a ticket to my event. She was like, my sister told me to come, and she told me her sister's name. And she was like, she said that when her kids were like teens, and she said, when my kids were little, she said, you're the person she went to. She said, you're the person. She said, you were going to be in town. She drove like an hour and a half to get to where I was. And so she kept telling me about her sister. And I was just like, I don't know her. I don't know her. And the more she told me about her sister, I said, you know what? That sounds a lot like, and I gave her the person's name. And she said, that was 11 years ago. And 11 years ago, when she was on Twitter, had just started, right? And we didn't know. She was like, that's the name she used to go on when she was in this other state.
Right.
Years ago. I see this to say is that I don't forget my family, and I have had a lot of families. What I'm saying is, you join my community. It's just like people invite me to weddings, birthdays, like, we're in community.
Y'all
family. I'm real about this. So that's one. Be in community, learn, equip yourself, right? And then stand in your authority. You're on assignment. You are on assignment. So that's one thing. And two, whether or not you're ready to homeschool, you should. Home is the epicenter, right? And you need to. I have a free decenter schooling to center humanity at home, and center at home as epicenter. I have a free mini workshop that's about an hour and a half. That's on my website. And so, like, really, really go into your closet and really say, am I going to do this or not? Right? Am I going to be on assignment or not? And if you are, then, take that step. Maybe you're not ready to homeschool yet. Maybe you are. But even if you think about it, right, consider it and understand that, like, 120 years ago when the school wasn't here, people socialized, people learned, people were in communities, people developed trades. The school is a new thing. Just because people are doing it doesn't mean that it's normal.
Yeah.
It is that things are normalized. And I will say this last thing. With the events that have happened the last 2 weeks, I think that it's unfortunate that so many grown people are saying, I never knew. I didn't know that. I don't know I don't know what policies we support. I don't know who to call. I didn't know that country existed. I didn't know this was happening. There's so many I don't knows. And we need to really say, do we want to continue to uphold these systems that don't teach us and don't center humanity? Or are we going to do something different? And if you are, come get at me.
Girl, listen, you have blessed my whole heart today. Do we continue to uphold these systems?
Welcome, that's it.
And then also, y'all make sure y'all follow her, because like you heard her say, she does events as well. So she may be in your city. She may pop up in your city and you can get you a nice little message, right? And then go to her site, go to her page, go to her site.
And she has some of these people on Sunday at Lab. So listen.
Yes.
You are $150 away from being here on Sunday in community for the next 5 weeks, because the week Lab already started. Come through.
Go get in. Go listen. Your children, you owe it to them babies, right? And then let me give you your takeaways that I got in here. First things first, if you are interested in homeschooling, go check out the criteria in your state. You can do that from a simple Google search. Number two, you're gonna need to make a list of the people you know, right? Even if you're not gonna homeschool, make a list of the people that you know and what they do, what you find interesting, what your children may be interested in. Next thing, the third one was stand in your authority. That right there spoke. And then let me see if I have any more. Once you've divested yourself from the system, you do not want to recreate that system? And that basically parents, we are traumatized children in adult bodies, baby. So we have to learn how to center our parenting, decenter this schooling. Our children depend on it. I love you, Nikolai. This was great.
Thank you for having me.
So much for coming. Thank y'all so much. All right, guys. I'll talk to you. Bye.